Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, natural, divine heirs. Today is 10/10/1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar. Let me know if you can hear me, Islam. Just one moment. Let me make sure that you can see me. Okay. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American, court, Article 3 court action. I am sovereign living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. My free chosen sovereign appellation is like to Jerry Bay, in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. Our full faith, trust, credit, allegiance, and energy are hereby vested in ourselves, for we are the people who are the original indigenous natural divine de jure Moorish National Republic federal government, the ancient state of Morocco, which is the empire as well, and state in French and ancient English is the word estate. And so we are the ancient estate of Morocco. We hereby exercise all sovereign rights at this time and at all points in time, nunc pro tunc, Islam. So really quickly, I want to just point out a couple of things because I like to try and address some of the things that we see pretty regularly. That way, we all have an idea of why we do the things that we do, because I know sometimes Moors get asked the same questions, or they will ask the same questions, and so we want to respond to those questions competently. Why do we write, speak, and enforce the law in ancient English as our national expression? Let's take a look, and we heard this quote on this past Friday when we were watching our brothers, Brother Shem and Brother Shem Malachi and Brother Abdullah. We were watching them on Friday, which we honor their work. And we appreciate all that they're doing for our nations and governments. And Brother Shem brought up this particular phrase or quote by Philip K. Dick. It says, the basic tool for manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use them. And when we were in our sleep, they told us, the corpses said, this is how you will spell, this is how you will write, and then we get to determine the meaning of what you spell and what you write. And if you think that it means something different, that's your problem. That's what the corporations told us. And they even gave us spelling bees on how to spell the corporate words that they hypothecated from us. Because remember, all words started with us. We're the Phoenicians. We get to determine what the words mean. We get to determine how we spell them and how we cast and break our spells. So I wanted to point that out really quickly because it's important that we that everything that we write, we put our own energy and expression on it. We don't have to spell it the way they spell it. We spell it the way we want to spell it. And with ancient English is phonetic, so it contains all the languages. So we just pull as we see fit, and however we want, whatever specificity we want to add to a definition, because again, the dictionaries and definitions are all very general. Even in Black's law, they're general. We have to add specificity to them. And the way we do that is to spell the word the way we want to spell it. That means that in that way, we get to determine and control what we're saying. And no one else gets to do that. Okay? So I wanted to bring that up. Now, I also saw something very quickly that I want to bring forth, because sometimes when we're doing things, and I know we heard this a lot in the beginning, we heard that, you know, oh, they don't do what we say, they don't listen, you know, and we needed to do a few more things, like learn to raise them from the dead so that they can hear. So, are the subjects obeying the commands given by the Moors regarding getting into subject status? That's the quick question that we want to answer before we move forth. The question is, do the subjects know their status on our land? Do they know it? I'm going to put the link to this article in the chat so that you can read the article for yourself when you have time to do so. And that way you can see exactly what they're talking about and decipher for yourself. Okay. But the question is, are they hearing what the Moors are saying about who's who? Who are the citizens and who are the heirs? Who is the ancient state of Morocco? Who's the law on the land? Who is it? It is the Moors. Without a doubt, it's the Moors. Here is the link in the chat of this document. So go ahead and grab the link really quickly, and then we will close the chat back off again so that we can, so that it won't distract us from what we're talking about today. Because sometimes the hybrids will put things in there and, you know. Okay. Islam. Okay. So thank you in the chat, Empress. So let's look at this article really quickly. Because the question is, do they know who they are? Do they know that they are the subjects of the Moors and that they're the citizens and that we are the heirs? Do they know that? Yes, they do know it. So let's look at what they're saying. I'll put the article on the screen. This is what the article says. It says Yellen, which is Janet Yellen. She is doing business as the Treasury Secretary of the Corporate Treasury. And we told the corpses that we're going to lean you back into subject status because they can't be corpses and dead on this land who speak life on the land. And so now that we have said corpses out of here, subjects, you're here. You're now living subjects of the Moors. What are they saying? She is saying, the title of this article is Yellen on invoking the 14th Amendment to ignore the debt limit. She says we shouldn't ever be in that position. Well, we know that the 14th Amendment was not ratified. 14th Amendment is Negroes, blacks, coloreds, and African Americans, which is not us. We're Moors, right? Well, what is she saying when she says that? Let's read just a little bit. It says, quote unquote, Treasury Secretary, which she is not, Janet Yellen, said on Sunday that the U. Just one moment. Let me make sure that you can hear. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't see it registering on the sound meter. But let me go ahead and just one moment. Okay, I've opened up the chat. Can you all hear me? If you can hear me, put it in the chat really quickly. Okay, great. Thank you. Islam. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Morris. I appreciate that. Okay, so in this article, this is the citizen stating, stating that they do not want to be 14th Amendment citizens, subjects of 14th Amendment. They don't want to go into 14th Amendment status. Okay? What does that mean? See, the Moors, we have told them that the debt has to leave the land. We said that. And what does that mean? That means that anyone who is claiming to be a stateless citizen will fall under the 14th Amendment. In other words, that's statelessness. They don't want to go into stateless status. They want to. What they're really saying is more. We know you're the state, and we need you to claim us. That's what they're really saying, because they don't want to be in that status of statelessness any longer. However, again, the debt says that they will be in that state unless we redeem them. We have to redeem them. How do we do that? We start using delarium to discharge that debt off of them and give it back to the corpses and let the corpses take the debt. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Caesar only has debt. So what they're saying is they don't want to be Negro, black, colored, African American. They don't want to be that. They want to be Moorish subjects ipso jure. That way, a debt ceiling or a debt limit will not sink them into everlasting debt. So that's why we're doing what we're doing with regard to Moorish sovereign delarium and all that we're doing in terms of the finance piece. We must start using Moorish sovereign delarium because the debt is outrageous for them. We don't have any debt, but we are the redeemer. We created them and we need to redeem them. How do we do that? Everything that was sent to us or to the thing that they call the court, everything that was sent to the thing that they call the court, we need to send the delarium for that. Because that's the credit. And in accounting, those who know accounting and finance, which almost do, you know that there's a credit side and there's a debt side, a debtor side. They've run the debtor side up. So now it's time for the creditors to step in and start redeeming both the time and them. We don't need redemption because we are able to wake ourselves up. It's the subjects that need the redemption, and they're aware of that. Clearly they're aware of it because they're saying, please don't let us go into 14th Amendment status. And in reality, they're already there. They're already there, but they know that we are doing what we're doing. And that's the only way anything like this would have ever made it into a news media outlet, of them saying we don't want to go into 14th Amendment status. More, please get us out of that. Okay, so they see what's happening, and they know that we know how to remedy that. So for those who are feeling that, you know, oh, delirium doesn't work, just do the demonstration. Because everybody that I hear, and I've only heard just a few, because most know the law. They know that delirium is the law. And the ones that I've heard say, you know, well, is that going to get me some groceries at the grocery store? Do they want to go, does the grocery store want to go into 14th Amendment status and go straight to jail for being out of alignment with the law? Because that is what will happen if they do not accept delirium. But we, Moors, must be competent when we put the delirium forth. We must be competent to do that, and peaceful. So let us walk through that process together competently. And if something happens and they say, oh, no, they need to put it in writing that they're not accepting it, and then sign what it is that they're saying. Put it in writing. Don't just stand up there and run your mouth and say, oh, we don't accept that here. It's just blah, blah, blah. No, put that in writing and sign it, because that will be signing a court action, because we just invoked court. So they don't want to go into 14th Amendment status. They do not. And more, don't they look scared? They look scared because, you know, 14th Amendment status is not a good look on anyone. And we were never that. We were never 14th Amendment. Even the ones that come into the hybrid modern Europeans that come into this call, they want help too. That's why they're here. They want help. They need help and they need redemption. And they know we can provide that. And we're happy to provide it. We love our subjects. We're happy to provide it. Because we want our land to be peaceful and not to have a bunch of death and corpses and debt on our land. So even the ones in here, because I see them registered here. There are several of them here in this meeting. We're going to do what we, as your Creator said we would do. We're going to do that. So with that being said, let's get into our topic, which really this is just a continuation of what we're already saying. Okay. So now, the topic, but again, the question was, are the subjects obeying the commands given by the Moors regarding getting into subject status? That right there is just a hint that, yes, they are. They know their subjects. They know that they are. Do the subjects know their status on our land? Yes, they do. They know that. And are we going to be honorable and do what we need to do? Yes. We are the state. We're the government. We're the law. We're all of that. We're the empire. And again, when we talk about state, we're saying estate, the empire. The state of Morocco is an empire. So I wanted to bring forth a little bit more about the authority and the power that we all have here as Moors of the ancient state of Morocco, which is our empire. And the reason we say state of Morocco is because the whole earth and wherever we go is the state of Morocco. It's not a state like what they said was a state. It's not a state where there's this little thing on a map, a little square on a map with squiggly lines and all of that. That's not a state. That's a political boundary. Our state is a state of mind first and foremost, and then it's also the whole earth and all of its natural resources and commerce and all of that. So, statehood defined. We went into a little bit of research and looked up some information on statehood. So let me put, let's see. When I put in statehood, Wikipedia came up as usual. They like to be the first ones to pop up on the timelines and things. So we just kind of clicked on it to look, and the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States is what came up. And if you'll notice, it was done at Montevideo, Uruguay, which is still here. It's still our land. And it was done on December 26, 1933, and we know what happened in 1933. So this Montevideo Convention was actually them, the corporate, acting out what statehood looks like and what it takes to be a state. They were really trying to say, Moors, please look at this, because it's 1933 and you all still don't have any money, quote unquote. And if you don't have any money, you can't really engage with other states because you have to import and export things in and out of your state. And that is governed by an allocation of currency. But you can't use someone else's currency but claim that you're an independent state, a sovereign state. You have to have your own. And that's why this came forth in 1933, which is, again, the same year as House Joint Resolution 192 that Moors like to, we've looked at that, where it stated, hey, there's no money, at Morocco, ancient Morocco, on this land here. There's no money, so we need to find a way to pay things. And that's going to be important as we proceed, because I'm laying the foundation right now for what really happened and what we are fixing by having our own money. Because, see, in reality, it's almost like it's 1933 all over again, kind of, sort of, in terms of the events that have taken place and what we are to do now. So this Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States points out some very basic characteristics of a state. Okay, and let's look at those characteristics. In other words, they were picking the easiest, so to speak, characteristics by which a sovereign group can declare their statehood. And statehood, again, is not a specific location. It is a state of mind, really, of a group who has decided to be together. Okay? Just one moment. Let me pull some things up out of here. Okay. I'm going to put in the chat this link to Wikipedia, and then we will look at. Here you go. Okay, there it is in the chat, the convention, the Montevideo Convention on the duties and rights of states that we're looking at right now. So on that page at Wikipedia, I wanted to point out a few things about states and the duties and rights thereof. And of course, it's a little bit hypothecated because, again, they cannot speak from the sovereign position. We actually have to speak from the sovereign position and give it the character and nature that we want it to have. That's why we're the Phoenicians, because they knew that they were not going to be able to speak as the sovereigns, so they could put some things out there, and then we as the sovereigns come and say, okay, let's add this to that, let's spell it this way, let's add some more clarity to this, okay? So it says the convention sets out the definition, rights and duties of statehood. Most well known is Article 1, which sets out the 4 criteria for statehood that have been recognized by international organizations as an accurate statement of customary international law. The state, and they say as a person, which we know we're not person, we're the sovereign, of international law should possess the following qualifications: a permanent population. Do we have a permanent population? And we spell population a little bit differently because we know that where population is concerned, it means what we say it means. We do have a permanent population. We're here, sitting here right now. A defined territory. Now, among the Moors, the defined territory is, some say that it's simply the Western Hemisphere. We don't argue with that. If that's what they say, then that is what the territory is for them. And we are in agreement with them on that. Whatever they say is applicable for them. Okay, we agree. What do we say a defined territory is? A defined territory, according to the ancient records and the biblioheliotheque, which is really the biblioheliotheque in its reality, is wherever our feet go. Wherever we plant our feet, that is our territory. That is our defined territory. We define our territory by being there. That's why when, no matter where we go, what buildings we go in, it might look like that's some inferior court, but it's not an inferior court when we go there, because we uplift all of fallen humanity by our presence. And it then becomes Article 3, which is an automatic promotion, and then we speak the law. And we do the justicing and judging in those, wherever we go, everywhere. Side of the road, something that was doing business that it looked like a fake court. Okay, we make it real when we get there. We speak life when we get there. And let me say this about even, we refer to the ancient records quite often. Some have been wondering why sometimes we quote that book of records called the Bible. Well, those who know about our ancient records know that back in the day, we used to get a lot of our information and prophecies and things like that from those in our nation called the Sibyls. Sibyl is a name or an appellation, from some have that actual appellation as civil. The civils in our culture and in our government were the prophetesses. Civil, the book that they were calling the Holy Bible, what the Vatican did was take the records and the prophecies of our civils, and instead of calling it the Holy Civil, they just changed that S to a B and called it the Holy Bible. But if you look at even at the way the word Bible is spelled, it's really pronounced Bible, B-I-B-L-E. And that came from the civils, the Moors. The Vatican took that and hypothecated it and capitalized it. That's where that came from. So that's why we refer back to the ancient writings of the civil among the Moors. So that's some called the bibliofilial text. So having said that, a defined territory is wherever, according to the civils and according to the ancient records and according to even the bibliofilial text, the Bible, wherever we plant our feet is our defined territory. We define our territory as Earth, Gaia, Midgard. That's what we define our territory as. That is the state of Morocco. That is the empire. Some call it Pangea, where all the land is connected, and it's still connected, even though there's a body of water on top of some of the land. It's still connected under the water. So then C, here on the screen, this third characteristic, it says government. Well, we are the law, and we are the government, okay? And that is what these meetings that we have are all about. It's just us governing yet again, and also the documents that we send out. That's governing. And then we enforce it. And what are we doing further? We are putting our own allocation of currency on our land for anything that comes in. And I'm looking forward to going into what that really means and how it happened that we didn't have that allocation of currency. And what it's amazing because it's been on the public record in front of us the whole time that Moors, you need to get your own money. It's been on the public record in the International Court of Justice Corporation. They even put something on the public record that shows that we needed to have our own money. Okay. So with that being said, just one moment. Okay, and the fourth qualification is one of the most important qualifications, and this is where the delarium comes in at. The capacity, one of the qualifications of statehood, is the capacity to enter into relations with the other state. We have the capacity now, but we did not previously because we didn't have our own money. Entering into relations is nothing more than intercourse or commerce. That's what relations is. Okay? And so now that we have our own money, we can enter into relations with other states. And here's the thing. We enter into relations with other states that are indigenous. We don't enter into relations with corpses. So now what do? Well, we put all corpses, we do a court action and tell the corpses, nope, we don't do any business with you. we're doing business with the subjects. That way, the subjects, we raise the corpses from the dead, and that leaves a subject there. Okay? By raising them from the dead, we send the corpse on its way. The corpse and the corporations are Caesar. So what we leave Caesar with his debt. That's what the corporations are, their debt. We leave Caesar with that. Okay? And when we leave Caesar with his debt, that frees our subjects to do as commanded. And they have the resources because we give them the resources. Okay? It says here, furthermore, the first sentence of Article 3 of this Montevideo Convention explicitly states that the political existence of the state is independent of recognition by the other states. Many have been saying, you know, they don't recognize us, and that this was that. I haven't heard that in so long. It's just, and I'm grateful that we don't hear that as often as we used to hear it. But we didn't need their recognition, and we knew that. But for those who need to see that in writing about why we don't need their recognition, there it is. And that was stated back in 1933. We don't need their approval or validation of anything. Because here's the thing about the subjects that are on our land. They're not a real estate. Yes, Justice Jeremiah put in the chat, this is how they hid the Sibyls in Greek so-called mythology. Yes, they did. They hid our Sibyls so that we would not recognize ourselves. But we know we are the prophetesses and prophets. And the Sibyl is plus gender or a gender in terms of a Sibyl can be a male or a female prophet. Prophet or prophetess. Okay. So we don't need it is independent of recognition by the other states. That means we do whatever we want to do on our land, and we just notify the other states, and notify our subjects. Okay? Notify the subjects so that the subjects, who are very protective of us, by the way, because if they see anything that does not look like the Moors, they're over there trying to arrest and all of that. Okay? But when they recognize us, that's not something that they do where we beg them to recognize us. No, we be ourselves, just to be ourselves. That's how you get recognition, is be yourself, period. Okay? And put the law forth. And state who you are, independent of what any others think. That is a sui generis or individual characteristic of a sovereign. It's also a collective characteristic of our empire. Is we just don't, okay? Now, it also says here further on this page, it says, this is known as the declarative theory of statehood. Yes, it's a theory that says you don't need recognition by other states, but that is the truth. And they call it a theory because, again, they cannot speak for the sovereign. We have to tell our own story. It says here, it stands in conflict with the alternative constitutive theory of statehood. A state exists only insofar as it is recognized by other states. It says it should not be confused with the Estrada Doctrine. Independence and sovereignty are not mentioned in Article 1. So again, they have to take independence and sovereignty out because in reality, they have none of that without the Moors. There's no such thing that exists outside of us. So the declarative theory of statehood is actually a truth for the Moors. We didn't need anyone else's recognition. And then the constitutive theory of statehood. It is also truth. A state is only recognized, a state only exists as it is recognized by other states. Do other states recognize us? You bet they do. We wouldn't be sitting here if they didn't. Okay? None of us would be sitting here if they didn't know who the Moors were. The fact that we see all of these things on the public record, and then the story that we just talked about where they're saying we should never be in 14th Amendment status because we're on the land of the Moors. So we should never have to go into that. We should have never been there. But we have to do what the Moors do and say. And when the Moors decided that they were going to pretend to be 14th Amendment citizens, then everybody, the whole earth said, okay, well, that's what we got to be. And then we'll just put corpses and, dead corporations over everything until the Moors wake up and say, okay, everybody, you're all alive now. We're here and you're alive and you're living subjects. And they're breathing a sigh of relief. How do we state that? We state that by having our own money and entering into relations with other states and then having subjects on our land do as commanded. That's what all of that looks like. That's what sovereign status looks like. That's what statehood is for the Moors. And it says something very important here. It says an important part of the convention was a prohibition of using military force to gain sovereignty. That is why we kept saying what we were saying about peace. Okay? Peace is okay, yeah, that's good in the chat. I see some things coming in the chat. Peace is that is the hallmark of the return of the Christ energy. And that's why we kept saying what we were saying about we don't need guns. Our prophet said don't even carry a pocket knife. Okay? He said don't even carry a pocket knife because he knew that our pens are mightier than any sword. He knew that. So even where we are right now, where we're printing our own money and about to enter into commercial relations and merchant relations with other states and nations and governments, we didn't need guns to get here. Now, can we have guns? Yes, we can, in the format of a well-organized militia. So make no mistake about that. When people talk about the Second Amendment right to bear arms, it qualifies that right to bear arms as a well-organized militia or military. But we did not need that to get where we are now. We did not need that to get where we are now. Clearly, we didn't need it because we don't have it. We didn't have it. Whenever we're ready to have that, we'll have it. So we didn't need it. That's not one of the four. That's not one of the four characteristics of statehood. Anyway, it doesn't say anything about a military. But again, we're sovereign. It's our land. We can do however we want to do on our land. We can do that. But again, the purpose of everything that we do is peace. Okay, so we don't want to come out like we're starting wars and all of that, because wars don't look like what we thought they looked like. Every war that's been fought on this land was done on paper, and then they would throw a few little people with some guns out in front of us just to make it seem like that might have been the war, but that's not the real war. It's not. The real war happened on paper. And the whole time that we thought that there was some war going on, they were putting the guns out there and putting a bunch of stuff on TV and in the newspapers. Meanwhile, that was distracting us from watching the documents that came in the mail and watching the documents that went on the public record that we did not properly rebut, which we have since then properly rebutted. So it's going to be very important, because now we can see that it's not even about guns. It's not even about that. It's always been about the documents and what we rebut or what we keep silent on. Silence is acquiescence. We don't acquiesce, period. And we don't have to yell at either. We just state it by court action, sovereign Article 3 court action, properly identifying all parties. And in reality, all of our court actions start and end with identifying proper identification of the parties when you're talking about subjects and courts. Because once we identify them as a corpse, we raise them from the dead, and now they're a subject. Once they're identified as a subject, then what's there to argue about? What's there to debate? Nothing. The Moors just speak and say, this is the law. And when we're in honor and we're not warring back and forth, it's the law, period. Okay? So now, it says right here, Article 11, right here, it says, the contracting states definitely establish the rule of their conduct, the precise obligation not to recognize territorial acquisitions or advantages that have been obtained by force, whether this consists in the employment of arms, in threatening diplomatic representation, or any other effective coercive measure. What does that mean? What is that saying? That's important for us. We don't acknowledge anyone who is using employment of arms and guns and all of that in their attempt to gain some territory. Well, what does that mean? That means that the United States Corporation Company doing everything at gunpoint, we don't even recognize that. We don't recognize that everything belongs to the Moors, period. We don't recognize it. So some have been saying, what do we do about all the lawlessness of the corporations? We get in our proper status, we raise them from the dead, and then we say, okay, anything done by a corpse, we don't recognize that. We don't recognize corpses because we're life. Corpses are dead. And then here, this is important. It says, in threatening diplomatic representations. That means no one represents the Moors. No one represents the Moors. They don't represent our money because Federal Reserve notes were attempting to represent our allotment or allocation of currency. And I'm using the term allocation of currency for a reason. And we'll talk about that shortly, because that is so important as to where we are right now and where things were in 1933 and where things were in 1954 and 1952 and 1956 with regard to, remember, in 1956, it was claimed that the one that was doing business as president shut down the consular court, but that's not true. Because no one has the authority to do that but the Moors. So what was going on? Well, courts have to be, in order for any court to be valid, it must be underwritten with their own currency, because a court is a governing arm. It's an arm of government. You've heard of the long arm of the law. Moorish American Consular Court, long arm of the law. The International Court of Justice that were doing things while we were in our sleep. You do know that the International Courts for Justice are actually gigantic consular courts because they dealt with diversity. They were doing our job. We're the International Court for Justice. So why would we go to them when we're it? We are that, not it. We are they. We're the International Court of Justice. We're the International Criminal Court. In red and all lowercase letters. We're the World Court. In red and all lowercase letters. We're the Supreme Court. Because Supreme Court deals with diversity. And federal questions. Well, who's better to answer a federal question than the federal government, which is the de jure Moorish National Republic federal government. The heirs, the ancient Al-Moroccan estate. So why would we go to a corporation and corporations cannot govern and courts govern? Courts govern. We're the government. So in threatening diplomatic representation, it is a threat when someone is attempting to represent the Moors because no one represents the Moors. And no one threatens the Moors either. No one threatens the Moors. Why? Because they all know not to do that. But we actually can stop all of that by just being ourselves peacefully. That's all we have to do is be ourselves peacefully. And there won't even be a need. We have no enemies when we're in our proper status. And that's how this estate has lasted for trillions and trillions and trillions of years. Our estate never went anywhere. It's still right here. It's just a matter of what paper is claiming to govern it. Is there some corporate paper over it? Or are there some sovereign affidavits placed on the public record that state that the Moors are the heirs? That's all this was all about. And have we proven that commercially? Yes, we have, with liens and court actions and more sovereign delarium. And then it says here, or any other effective coercive measure. And now we do know that that coercion is something, isn't it? But like I was stating earlier, we don't sign anything even under, and we're never under anything. But they used to use the term under threat, duress, and coercion. Nope, don't sign it. I'm not signing it. We're not signing it. Not doing it. Not even under what might be perceived as threat, duress, and coercion. Just don't sign. Period. So now, let's discuss, because I've heard many bringing this up, and we need to really, really look at this and put it in its proper place. The 1952 case concerning the rights of nationals of the United States of America in Morocco. Because I've heard Moors talk about that and talk about it and talk about it. And Moors, that case in 1952, we have actually done a huge reversion of the state where that case is concerned. Because the case sounds like it's about one thing, but in reality it's about something else. It's about what we knew it was about, which is currency, money. That's what that case was about. I'm going to put, yes, in the chat, yes. I'm putting a link to this case in the chat so that you can take a look at it, because this is major when it comes to where we are now and what we're doing now with regard to mors sovereign. I want to show you just a few things in this case. The rights of nationals of the United States of America in Morocco. I'm going to put the link on the screen so that you can see. Because, again, what we're doing with mors sovereign is going to answer this case. See, people think that the case was about one thing when, they think the case was about commerce only, and it was. That's correct. But this case was about money. The United States, in this case, the United States Corporation Company. So at this time, the Moors were asleep, sort of. Because, see, we're the Moroccan authority in this case, okay? But we didn't have any currency at the time. So in this case that happened, first 1933 happened. I'm sorry, let me go back even further. First, 1913 happened, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, where the United States Corporation Company was saying the Moors don't have any currency on this land that they're using en masse. How are we going to get things in here if they don't have any currency? And so that's where 1913 happened, and then 1933 happened, where they said, okay, the Moors don't have any currency on the land, so let's just state that on the public record that there's no currency on the land for the Moors, and that they should be able to discharge their debt, okay? But the Moors don't have any debt. So then what was that really about? It was about this right here, too. The United States Corporation Company wanted to start importing things, bringing things in. But the Moroccan authorities said, no, if you want to bring anything in, you got to go through France, because France is using francs. They have the French franc, which is currency. And the United States said, well, what we could do, because, see, they didn't want to yield and give, they didn't want to be under France. They wanted control of the Moors and the Moors' estate and what comes in and what goes out. They wanted control of all of that. So they figured that if they could print debt notes and get us to use the debt notes to get whatever it is that the United States Corporation Company is bringing in, then they could take complete jurisdiction over us. And I'll ask you this question more, did that strategy work? That's just a rhetorical question for you to think about. Because, see, the Moroccan authorities had told them, the United States, that you can't bring anything in here unless you go through France. And the United States said, well, hold up, this is what we'll do. We will just bring things in and we'll do it on credit. We'll just use the credit of the Moors. We'll bring things in from other places because the Moors need things. That's what they were saying. The Moors need this, the Moors need that. And because they don't have their own currency, we can just use their credit. And the other nations of the earth, they'll accept it because it's the Moors. All we got to do is say, we're just bringing some things in for the Moors. Give us what you have on credit. It's the Moors' credit, not the United States Corporation Company, because they didn't have any credit. So people around the earth said, okay, hey, let's do this because the Moors need to eat, they need clothes, they need toys for the babies, they need all these things. But they have not awakened to the point where they print their own money to get those things. So let's just use their credit because they're good for it. The Moors are good for it. They're the creditors. But then what did the United States Corporation Company do? They started manhandling people and saying, we're doing this for the Moors. But we're not going to tell the Moors that we're using their credit and their authority. In fact, we're going to put on the news that they're black and they're not even worth anything really, and that they came over here on slave ships. But then when we go out and talk to other nations, we're going to say we represent the Moors. We're using their credit, and they said that to give us this, 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 and this. So when you look at this case right here, look at this first couple of sentences. It says, by a decree of 30 December 1948, the French authorities in the Moroccan Protectorate imposed a system of license control in respect of imports not involving an official allocation of currency, and limited these imports to a number of products indispensable to the Moroccan economy. What are they saying? They're saying, well, the Moors need something they can't do without them. And we're not going to let the Moors do without them. This is the United States Corporation Company talking, trying to invoke their jurisdiction over the Moors. That was their ultimate goal. But what did they say? Well, we need to get the Moors some things that they need. We're going to aid the Moors. But we don't have a currency. We just have Federal Reserve debt notes. 1913, 1933, Federal Reserve debt notes. Okay, by then, they were circulating Federal Reserve debt notes all over the place, using them as a store of value, but it was debt value, which is not value. And then 1952 happened. This case happened because France was saying, wait a minute. The Moroccan authorities have said that we're the protectorate. This is France. We're the protectorate of the Moors. So they said anything that the Moors need, you're going to have to use France. You're going to have to go through us. If not, you have to get a license to bring in whatever it is you're going to bring in. And that's where all this licensing comes in at. They're foreign licenses. But that system was put in place in the place of the allocation of currency because the Moors didn't have a creditor currency. A creditor currency like Moorish sovereign delarium. We didn't have anything that we were producing credit-wise. And Moorish sovereign delarium is not credit as in what the courses call credit. It's credit as in it comes from the creditor. So when we give it, we're giving them credit, and they can take that same credit and use it and get something something else for it. Whereas if it was debt, we would give them the debt, which we were doing with Federal Reserve debt, and then they would come back and say, okay, you still owe because you just gave us debt. Okay? So this case was the United States Corporation Company thinking to themselves, if we can just get the Moors to use these Federal Reserve debt notes and nothing else and never come up with their own money, we can take over everything. We can take over everything, including them, and then we'll hold them as surety. That's what this whole jailing Moors repeatedly is all about, is they're saying, Moors don't have their own money. They don't have their own currency. They've not given an allocation of currency. And since they're using Federal Reserve notes, we need a guarantee from the Moors that these notes are going to be honored. So let's prove to the rest of the world that the Moors are surety for these Federal Reserve notes and that they're good for the credit. So what did they do? Gather up a bunch of us and start throwing us in jail because we didn't produce our own currency. And they're saying, look, we holding them as surety. There they are. And then what did they do? They put it on television all over the earth that, look, the Moors are in jail. Look, there they are right there. So they're good for, we got them. So you use these Federal Reserve notes, other nations, and give us whatever it is that we want, so that we can make sure that we have what we want, because we got the Moors in jail. We're holding them for surety, and we know they're not going to go anywhere, because guess what? We're holding them right there. And then they would just show on television all the Moors behind bars, not knowing that all we had to do more was do what we have done already. And then the Moors that are behind bars, you're going to have to do stand, stand, and more stand. Do some court actions on those people behind while you're in there. Do court actions and let everything be done by court action while you're there, so that you can come on out of there. We needed to get our own currency. We needed it. Because this case right here was, again, the United States Corporation Company saying, hey, and that's in black ink, pale ink. The United States Corporation Company saying we can bring in whatever we want to bring in on this land, on the Moors credit, and we'll just let the Moors use debt, these debt notes that we're producing. We're producing these Federal Reserve debt notes. That will be their dollar. That will be their dollar. And so there we went. So everything that they brought in, just one moment, everything that they brought in to this onto this land, they brought it on our credit. Just one moment. Let me make sure I have the document up here. Okay, so now what are we doing right now where allocation of currency is concerned, in this case of the rights of nationals? The rights of nationals. What are we doing? How are we affecting this case right here? We're affecting this case by saying, United States Corporation Company, you are bankrupt and you're out of here. We have our own money, so anything that's coming in here is coming in here by virtue of more sovereign dollarium, gold-backed money, real money that's coming from the heirs. Now, you've heard more about ships lining up at the ports and not being able to offload their cargo. You've heard about that. Well, the more we start using more sovereign dollarium, send it out with all of your affidavits. Send it out. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a light bill. It can be conveyances, whatever it is. We must be competent to do that, those demonstrations. Send it out with that. With anything that you send out dollarium with it. I don't care if you're even just saying, even if it's just a name change in judicial proclamation, send dollarium with it to whoever you notify, so that they know that the allocation of currency piece that stops everything from moving is in place. Okay? That case in 1952, talking about the rights of nationals, that was France and the United States talking over our heads. And not really over our heads, but they were saying, look, we got to talk about this, because the Moors still don't have their currency together. They don't have it together yet. So we got to figure out how to get them what they need so that they don't miss anything. And the United States Corporation Company just kept extending their jurisdiction by making sure that everybody passed at least one Federal Reserve debt note at some point in time, because the passing of the Federal Reserve debt notes means that you agree to their jurisdiction. And they knew that. And then what did they do? They started doing videos, rap videos, showing people, you know, throwing up making it rain with a bunch of Federal Reserve debt notes. And what did? We started chasing the quote-unquote paper. We don't have to do that anymore. Isn't that a beautiful thought and a beautiful reality? We don't have to chase the paper, we just print it and say you will accept this. Now, where acceptance is concerned, I'm so grateful to the Empress who called me this week, and she knows who she is, who called me this week, and she talked about how she sent out Delarium for everything, anything where they were saying that something was due. And out of all the Delarium and the documents that she sent out, only one of them returned the Delarium to her, saying, you know, we don't need to accept that. And the only reason they did that, when I heard who it was, in my estimation, and of course I can't tell her story, but it's because some Delarium had been sent already with regard to something, and they cleaned it up and rectified it. So I think that might have been why they said we don't need any more of that. We're already in our proper place. So, but everyone else accepted the Delarium, did not send it back, and that's how this works. Okay? We must start extinguishing the debt, and Delarium can do that. And the thing about Delarium is that, Moors, you don't need one Federal Reserve debt note to get it. All you need is access to a printer, which you can do that at the library, and an email address. And we email the Delarium to you, and you print it off and sign and autograph it in red and all lowercase letters with your right red thumbprint on there as well, and just start sending it out with your documents. Send the word, masters. Just like in the bibliotext, they talk about when Yeshua was approached by a centurion, which is a military person, a military man, and whose daughter was sick. The centurion said to him, "My daughter is sick. Can you heal her? But she's way back in my land where I came from." And the centurion said, "All you have to do is send the word. You don't even have to come to where I am or where she is. All you have to do is send the word." What did he say? He was really saying, cover her so that she does not have to deal with death and court behavior, because she was on her way to dying. Send the word and she'll live. And he did, and she lived. So we speak by affidavit anyway. So all we have to do is send or hand deliver the affidavits to wherever we want them to be. We don't have to have in-depth conversations with anyone about anything, because we're helping them. Because see, we don't have any debt. But the subject stood and said, "Okay, we're gonna assist you all, but you're gonna have to redeem us. When you wake back up, redeem us." And we showed you in the story at the beginning of this call that they're now saying, "Please redeem us, or else we slip into 14th Amendment death, commercial death." So that's what we're doing too, is redeeming our creation. This story, again, wherever we send currency, our more sovereign Delarium, that then puts it in its proper jurisdiction. And what we're doing is extending our own territory by doing that. We're extending our territory every time we send Delarium out with affidavits. New Moors who are going to be downloading and completing the name change and judicial proclamation documents, Send dollarium. I don't care how much it is, but send some dollarium with each and every name change and judicial proclamation you send out, so that your territory and your jurisdiction is extended. Okay? See, in this case right here, the rights of nationals is directly connected to the allocation of currency. I'll say that again because it's really important. In this case that is on the screen, talking about the rights of nationals at Morocco, and this is any national. Because, see, we were even working as in quote-unquote citizen status, some of us, under the United States Corporation Company. That's just a corporate job. And at this time in 1952, many of our parents were working under the United States Corporation Company in those jobs. But that's what this is addressing. This is saying the Moors don't have their own currency, but we still need to get things in, and we can't let things, they're not going to go hungry. We're not going to let them go hungry. They're going to have food and stuff, but they're going to have to use these notes that we, from 1933 and 1913, we've implemented these notes, these debt notes, and they can use the debt notes, but they're going to have to redeem us from the debt. We will take on the debt for the Moors because they can't have any debt because they're the creditors. But when they wake up, they're going to just start, anything that we send like that, they're just going to go ahead and send the credit. And that's what dollarium does. Even with quote-unquote dead pledges and all of that, we're not the surety for that. All we're doing is saying, okay, subject, that's not your debt either. You did what you were supposed to do, which is assist us in being raised to our sovereign power. And that's according to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, as divinely prepared by the Prophet Noble Judicialle, chapter 29, magistrate and subject. The subjects did what we, the magi, told them to do, which is assist in raising us to our sovereign power so that we can rule over them. And now Janet Yellen and all of them are saying, please come and rule over us, because if you don't, we're going to slip into slavery. 14th Amendment slavery. And there's a reason why she was doing business as Treasury Secretary, because they know she's not the real Secretary of the Treasury. She's not that. She's not the Treasury Secretary. We are. All Moors are. That's why you can print your own money, because you are the treasurer. And so all of those products and all of these cups and forks and spoons and furniture and conveyances and the things for the domiciles and all of that stuff, the United States Corporation Company brought that stuff in here on using our credit. And now all we're doing is saying, okay, let's start getting rid of some of this debt here. And that's why they keep talking about a debt ceiling and raising it temporarily, because they're waiting for us to start using dollarium to extinguish it, so they don't have to keep doing that. They can see. They can see what we're doing. So that's why, you hear them saying, oh, we're just going to extend it until, the 18th of October. No, we'll extend it until December. Because they already know. They just need, it's going to be a major December, this whole time, they all know what we're about to do. They know what we're doing already. You are the creditors to all of the nations at earth. You should be printing your own money and using it to get everything you want. And of course, we do that with the proper energy. We cannot be spoiled brats. type thing, where we treat people like garbage just because we're the heirs. We don't do that. That's not how this works. But more of you know that already. I'm affirming what you already know. But I'm just saying that for anyone, the one or two who might be listening, who might think that that's okay, that's not okay. The subjects, they've done what they were supposed to do. Now let's do our part. Okay. And in the interim, we get whatever it is that we, that we see. We take dominion over everything. That's what all of the financial talk that you see in the news and all of that is all about. Allocation of currency by the heirs, the creditors. So with that being said, even the system of licenses that was imposed by France at the behest of the Moroccan authorities and the Moroccan protectorate, which is a still, that system of licenses, any of that stuff, all we have to do is use the larium, and it's going to set the law for whatever it is that we use on our land. Okay? So when it comes to things like business licenses and driver's licenses, do we need them? Nope. We have a national ID. Our national ID and our currency takes us out of that licensing. That's where, see, they're telling you in this case why licenses even existed. It's because there was no allocation of currency by the heirs. And Federal Reserve debt notes was not done by us. That was done by the United States Corporation Company. But they were just saying, there's a space here for $1. What are we going to put in that space that is supposed to constitute $1? The Moors haven't put anything there, and a national currency must go there. Okay, Moors, we put the Moorish sovereign denarium there. That's that same thing for the petrodollar. That's another dollar space that needed to be filled with something that was of national origin. And we put the Moorish sovereign denarium there too. Okay? And that is also the gold United States dollar that we control. Because again, corporations cannot own or hold gold. They know that. So what do? We lean the corporation and say, okay, you all are subjects, now mine the gold. But we got to give them, we have to prepay for everything, because that's what we've been doing, prepaying for everything. Remember, we've been saying that all along. Everything is prepaid. Everything is prepaid. We were just saying, when we get to that point, we're going to prepay everything. Well, it is prepaid. All we're doing now is giving an account of it. We're not buying our estate. Everything already belongs to us. All we're doing is saying, this is a store of value. Let us keep track of the value of things. That's all we're doing, is keeping track of the value with Moorish sovereign denarium. And then, whatever it is that you get, you just put, for example, with conveyances, create a lodial title and put it on the public record. Create a lodial sovereign indemnitaire, which is another way of, or the Latin way of saying insurance. Okay. So with that being said, are there any questions or comments about the use of the larium or any of the things that we have brought forth thus far?
Yeah, why doesn't anybody use it in the grocery?
I'll go ahead and answer that. I'll go ahead and answer that question because, and it's not really an answer to the question. I'm just going to state the facts about the grocery store piece even. We have not gotten around to doing the demonstration? Has anyone tried? Has
You're
anyone?
a fucking lazy Negro, Pauline, and you're full of shit.
This is what that looks like. This is what it looks like. Okay. I know you don't want me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So you have to be quiet while I speak, okay? Be quiet. So now, what does that look like?
You're fucking full of shit, Pauline.
That looks like, let me quiet that noise there. Be quiet. So what does that look like? What does the demonstration look like? Okay. Sending documents to the quote-unquote headquarters that state that you're the fiduciary for the sovereign empire state of Morocco, with name change, judicial proclamation, a lien on the social and that black name.
How many months do you need, Pauline? Do it yourself. Show everybody you doing it.
And also, what else does that look like? Just one moment. What else does that look like? A court action. All of your documents must be in court action status. Okay? So always start it with the court action language. We talk about the court action language all the time. And we are absolutely going to do that demonstration here shortly. The one thing I wanted to do before doing that demonstration, and this is a preference that I have, because I don't have a problem doing the demonstration, because you all already.
What about First Avenue? Do First Avenue, Pauline.
You already know. You've seen my demonstrations on the public record. But what I'm not going to do is allow them to come in here and let ego be the driving force of a demonstration. I'm going to move competently, like we've been doing, just like we did in February. We're not going to let ego take control of anything. We're going to competently, peacefully move through the demonstrations like we've been doing. When we did the POW demonstration in February, we did that at our own behest. And look how it turned out. It was absolutely amazing. The ancestors did their part in terms of keeping us safe while we did the demonstration, and we came out of there beautifully. And that is how we're going to continue doing our demonstration. We're not going to be what I would term doing things off of reflex energy. Just because a hybrid says something doesn't mean we have to run out and prove a point to them, because we don't listen. They're looking for saving from us. And I know that they want us to hurry up and get this done so that they can come out of that status. That's why they keep pushing. Because the sooner we get this done, the sooner they can come out of that slavery that they're in. And we get that. Hybrids, we want you to know we get it. But we're not going to be pushed into anything. We're going to do exactly what we've been doing. Demonstrating on the public record, doing our court actions, sending our documents out, and all of that.
Jail by Christmas.
And the Moors and all Moors are going to continue moving safely, peacefully, and competently at all we do. Yes, we're going to do the grocery store demonstration. But the thing I wanted to do first, before I do it, and you all don't have to wait for this, you can do it whenever you get ready. But the thing that we've been encouraging Moors to do is send your documents and some delarium to the Library of Congress so that they can put it on their record, on the record, because it's not even their record. They don't have any record. Okay. Sending it to the Library of Congress and ensuring that they have it on the record as well, and then do the demonstration. That's the thing that I'm doing in terms of the grocery store demonstration with the delarium. But we know that we can do it today if we wanted to do it today. We would just give notification like we've been doing. Again, more, just keep doing what you've been doing. due notification, proper notification, proper notification on the public record, and then do that proper notification. I would do it twice. And proper notification twice is a part of the process. Why is it a part of the process? Because the first time we notify them, we're notifying them by a lien on the court part of the grocery stores. Lien. That's first notification is any corporate entity has a court date with the Moors. Anyone acting in corporate status, you got a court date with the Moors. Okay? And then once you do the court action on them, then you send the corpses to Guantanamo Bay and decapitate them and remove them from that office. And then do the delirium demonstration, where you send some delirium to the headquarters and say, whenever we come into the grocery store, we're going to come on this day at this time. We're going to show you our Moorish American ID, and we're going to pay with Moorish sovereign delirium, or gold and silver. Now, remember, Moors, in most of even the Republic states, they're saying that gold and silver is legal tender. So we're not saying anything that's outside of what's really going on the land. All we're saying is we got to be bold enough to do it. It takes boldness. Yes, it does, because this is not what we were taught previously. And in our last call, we proved what happens with the debt when we use delirium, and then we did the delirium demonstration. In a past call, we showed you. So we're demonstrating definitely delirium all day, every day, and I keep some in my wallet when I go out. I keep delirium on me. So when we did the demonstration with delirium, and the empress who had got the corpses had given a ticket, and we did the demonstration where she did a court action and she sent 10,000 in delirium, and then she copied me and the corpses on that email where she included the delirium in the email. And then I responded back to her, recognizing what she had done and saying, yes, we recognize you. You are the empress, the heir to the estate, and this is an Article 3 court action. And we did it as a court action, and then we showed you the result of that. When she went online and she pulled up that information online to see what they had done with their court, what had they done? They had closed the case. They closed the case, and they dismissed the policy enforcer. Okay? So that is again, we're always putting our money where our mouth is. That's what they say. That's what we do. We put our money where, and then we're doing the same thing, even with the building on First Avenue. We've already done the demonstration with regard to that building. There's, again, one other thing I want, before I go back over there, there's some debt that I'm going to extinguish off the corpses with regard to my demonstration in February, because my demonstration in February is not quite finished yet. And how do I know this? Because since February, we've put the delirium in place and started printing it. So now I want to, there was a quote-unquote trespass ticket that they gave the court. So we had to take control of that in monochrome ink instead of black ink, because black means pale. So they were calling their court something. So we did a court action on that. And now what we're doing is we're going to send some delarium for that, the same way we did with the Empress, and then get the documentation to the Library of Congress, and then we'll go and do what we need to do with regard to the building. So we're just going to take our time and do everything that we need to do. Morris, this is our time. This is our time. They're watching us saying, Morris, help us out here. We've done everything you commanded us to do. We've done everything you commanded us to do. Now, can you please help us out? And again, we're not rushed even by that. We're not going to let anything happen to our land and our estate. We've already secured it. It's been secured since time immemorial. So are there any questions or comments or any demonstrations or anything that you can just star 6? You can star 6 to unmute yourself if you have any questions about anything that we've said thus far. Questions or comments?
Islam. Islam.
Nobility.
I got a question about the these tax deeds where they're claiming that they have possession. They want possession. They go into small claim court and they want possession, and they're producing all the documents that we sent them, the liens and all the other stuff. And I had the same issue before, but they didn't send all the liens and stuff. And they came to the house and stuck a gun in my face. And they're trying to do the same thing on another property. So I'm trying to find out the best way to handle it, because I don't usually go to their courts. I just send them information stating that I don't, I reject their offer to contract. So I'm trying to find out.
Have you sent them any delarium for anything?
The house is in my parents' name, and I've been sending the tax assessors the stuff for years. I sent them to remove it from the tax roll, and this in Indianapolis, and they kind of rebellious. They're very rebellious. So
well, they're looking for documents to be. Are your documents, have they been in red and all lowercase letters when you sent them?
Yes.
And you said it's in your parents' name.
Well,
are your parents?
The parents are deceased, and I claim the property is inherited. My parents are deceased. I've claimed the property and did the titles on it, and claimed it as sovereign resources. I did all of it. I've been through it with the light company, gas company, and all of them. They didn't want to do it, but they have no choice because they try to turn it off. I turn it back on and tell them I'm going to turn it on and all kind of stuff. But this last thing is they came to the house and kidnapped one of the heirs. They broke into the house. He claimed that they were squatters in the house, and then he goes to this court, and the small claims court. They don't even have jurisdiction anyway because it's property. But she did it last time. The so-called judge.
So let me ask you a little bit more about that then. So you said that you claimed it as an inheritance from your parents. Is that's what you said? Is that correct?
Yes, and I did the titles on it. The paperwork that he presented, the corporation that's trying to claim that they own and that they have a lease. They don't have a lease. They haven't even spoke to me, other than the liens stuff that I sent to them. But I'm trying to avoid this situation because I'm not leaving. And like they did when they're kidnapped the heirs, I went right back in there and took the locks off the door that they put on and everything else. I'm not afraid of them, but I don't want the heirs going through that because they don't know quite what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not scared of their threats, none of their threats or anything like that. So,
okay, so here's the thing that I can see based on what you said about inheriting it from your parents. You cannot inherit anything from anyone who is not a proclaimed Moor on the public record.
Well, I already put the in as I put in my title. I put down that it was the what you call it, the inheritance. I put down the noble diall claim the territory and all that different stuff in the titles that I presented as the sovereign ancient indigenous people. I put all that in there.
Did you put that your parents, that you inherited it from them?
I inherited as I think what I put down there was ancient indigenous property. I've done quite a bit of stuff on it, so I've got all kinds of different. But even before that, I had claimed it as an inheritance. But I've leaned their straw man and all, and I still got quite a bit more stuff to do.
And then when they said something about coming to a court, did you go to their court? Have you been to their court?
The last time, no, but this is a different property. And I'm still in trying to, I haven't had a chance to go to the other properties and get them off of those and to serve them, property serve them. Even though I sent the sheriff and the police chief, they know who own these properties. When you call in, and when I call and ask them about the event that happened at the last time, a couple of weeks ago, they know who owned these properties, even though the recorder office didn't claim that they didn't put it in there. They know, because you can hear it in their voices with the things they say.
Of course they know. Of course they know. But there's something in the process that still, because see, I'll tell you this, when we do, and I'm not calling you incompetent, please don't take it that way, but when you ask a question, we're asking questions to see if we can find something that we can improve on. Okay? So what I'm hearing is, number one, I did hear that you said that you inherited it on the title, so I would fix that part. I would change that. It's almost like you're claiming something. This is the way you want the process to look. The way you want the process to look is that, yes, you're correct. It is ancient land. Okay? It's ancient land because you say it's ancient land. But you have to, and again, I asked about the delarium. Have you sent them any delarium with regard to any of the properties? No,
I only did the claim as a lodio property, as a sovereign, and produced the titles and the documents from noble diall and the stuff that we do, a lodio title, and I've done that. But I claim my labor and everything else as the exchange, the gold on my titles and that. So I wasn't even trying to introduce anything to them because they're not doing anything. And the tax assessor should have took it off long ago, but they haven't. So they're not going to until a sovereign exchange takes place. And that's what the delarium is for. Because I will tell you this, when you're talking about invoking noble diall's trust, that trust was a fee simple trust, wasn't it? You said see, I'm not quite familiar with what you're getting at. Okay, so here's where I'm going with that. When you look at the documents that noble diall put on the public record regarding that trust, it was listed as a fee simple trust. Okay, fee simple. Fee simple. Fee simple means, and it does not mean what they said it meant, okay? Fee simple means that there has to be an allocation of currency. You're saying C or F-E-E? Fee, F-E-E, yes, F-E-E. F as in Frank, E-E. Inheritance. Okay. Yes. Okay, but fee simple means that, yes, it's your inheritance, but you have to account for the value of it. That's what fee simple really is. Or else he could have just said it's just an inheritance. You just inherit it. But instead, in Prophet Noble Diall's language, he used fee simple from what we've seen. They say that those are the documents that you put on the public record. Okay, we'll go with that. But it said fee simple. And
what they're getting at is back in the prophet's days, and this is why it took them from 1913 to 1933 to say something about it, is they were watching what the prophet was doing. And if we had invoked our own currency at that time, 1933 would have never happened, where they said, okay, Moors, there's no money, so you're going to have to discharge debt, and you're going to have to find a way to do it. And even then, the discharge of debt, they were pointing us to the allocation of currency. That's where, you know, all of these other cases that come up, every case that came up after that, including the one that's on the screen now about rights of nationals, they kept pointing to the currency saying, see, they don't have their own currency. How are we going to get around that? Okay, so this is my suggestion to you. My suggestion to you, and it's really not a suggestion, it's the law, is that they're saying they have those people those corpses that are acting in court status, you have to put them in subject status by court action and then give them delarium for the amount, the allocated amount. Whatever the tax assessor is saying is due, give her, send, I would say 3 times that amount in delarium. Calculate it out, or you can calculate it out for the next 100 years. And send her that amount in delarium. And let the sheriff and all of them, those corpses, know that you're not sheriff here, you're in subject status, and this is what has been done. And that's been the issue, nobility. I'm so glad you asked that question, because that's been the issue with the things that Moors have been doing in the past. Some very competent Moors have tried taking, possession of what is rightfully their inheritance, but the courts have come in each and every time. Why? Because we must be competent to do the sovereign exchange on the public record with our own allocation of currency, like what's on the screen. That is a right of the nationals at Morocco. We have the right to use our own money and to use it to extinguish their debt, not ours, theirs. Because see, if we don't extinguish the debt, then they're going to say, well, we have to hold them as surety because they're not extinguishing the debt. The debt is still there. And when they created us to make sure debt doesn't get on them. But now that they're awake, they have to get the debt off of us.
Okay, so we still using the sheriff just for the possession of properties and stuff like that, because I already did my Sharifian peace offers to
you're sovereign. However you choose to do that demonstration, you can do that demonstration. But again, delarium must be put on the public record and sent, even for that. Now, where sheriffs are concerned, again, they're not holding any office when it comes to the Moors. We're the sheriff. Right. But if you want them to do whatever that they're supposed to do, even if it's just stay away, then you send delarium to extinguish whatever debt that they're associating with that. Because see, that's what all this is all about. Is what they're saying is the debt hasn't been extinguished. And someone has to be held accountable for the debt, because that's basic accounting. We know that they've been using debt to do all the stuff they've been doing. At some point, the books have to be balanced, and the creditor has to step up and say, here's the credit. So for each and every property, what you've done, let me just say this, nobility, and please hear me on this. What you've done in the past is absolutely what you should have done. And I haven't even seen the documents, but there's no wrong way for us to be ourselves on our own land. It's only when we try to be citizens to get a benefit that's not the right way to be sovereign. Okay? So let me commend you for what you've done thus far, because it's amazing work and it takes guts to do it. okay? And if anybody has guts, the sovereign have the guts. We got the, and guts is just the constitution or the inner boldness to do it. But let's complete the process, nobility, by first clearing your energy about what has happened thus far. And you sound like you have great energy because you're not afraid. It's only when fear comes into play that the energy sometimes gets a little out of alignment. You know, when Moors get scared, they, you know, then the anger and the frustration comes out and all of that. That's how you can tell someone is afraid, is because they're like, I'm so tired of them doing this, I'm just angry. Okay, it's because that's fear talking. But you don't have that issue. So again, send the diallarium for each property, get the basic documents together, and then the fiduciary document for the state of Morocco. Because see, it's not you individually that is taking possession of the property, it's the state of the ancient empire of the state of Morocco, okay?
Yes.
You're bringing the authority and the power of the entire state of Morocco, which is where the property sits. It's sitting at Morocco. It is not sitting in a United States corporation company.
All right.
Okay.
So the best, I was trying to find out, they claim they have an emergency trial this Wednesday or something like that, but I don't have no intention of going there or on their video chats or anything else, but I'm trying to figure out the most effective way to
Do you have the diallarium in email? Do you have it so that you can print it off and autograph it? Okay. Before that thing that's happening on Wednesday or whatever day it's happening, make sure that you get, for that specific property, whatever it is, get the diallarium to the court, the inferior court, because they're really just an inferior court waiting for the proper exchange to take place. Get it to them by Tuesday. Along with, again, you've already done an allodial title. You've already done, you know, a lien. So I would send a lien, a allodial title, diallarium, and I would also download the fiduciary document. And we'll put the fiduciary document under this this video as well.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, that document is important. Islam.
What's the amount?
What's
the amount? What was
the amount you mean?
That you was trying to that you
3 times the value of what they say the market value is. So when you go to the tax assessor website, it's going to say this property is worth this much. So just multiply that times 3 and send that amount of diallarium.
Okay. All right. And then and I was also trying to join up. What was you saying?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and do that for each property.
All right. And then I was trying to find out who in the Indianapolis area was if they was doing anything, because a lot of stuff I do it on my own. I mean, people come and ask me when they see plates and stuff like that, how did you do that and this and that and the other, but they don't even know nothing about it. So and the ones that I do know, they have been kidnapped, and it's I've seen quite a bit. Even the best ones that know that this stuff is garbage, they throw up their hands at the very end and and took plea bargains and stuff like that. It's nonsense.
Yeah, we have to stand, and that's even under what might be perceived as threat, duress, and coercion, because it's really not threat, duress, and coercion. You can't get rid of us. We don't die, we multiply. So there's no such thing as threat, duress, and coercion. I mean, I've been there, I've done it. So this is not something that I'm just talking about. This is demonstrations I've done, and you all know about the demonstrations I've done. So nobility, the diallarium is the piece that we needed, because again, if you look at this case that's on the screen about the rights of nationals at Morocco, that case was all about the Moors did not have their own currency. Now we have it.
Which case is that, did you say?
This one, it's a 1952 case, and it started by decree in 1948. The title of the case is The Rights of Nationals of the United States of America in Morocco, France versus the United States of America.
Okay.
And the Moroccan authorities were over the case. The Moroccan protectorate was over the case, but the Moroccan protectorate was saying the Moors haven't awakened to do the allocation of currency, so you're going to have to find a way to get them what they need. So the United States said, well, we'll just do it on a debt. We'll just do it a debt economy until they wake up and turn it into a credit economy.
Okay.
And that's what they're saying, nobility, when the fake sheriffs and all of them come. They're saying this property it still needs an allocation of currency, because as competent heirs, you have to give an account. An account is like bank account or accountant ledger on what's going on with that property, what it's worth, the value of it. Because, see, again, nobility, and we've been saying this in the past, I'm so thankful for your question. In the past, we've said and we've shown you in writing that the payment, the form of payment, determines the jurisdiction and the law that's applied to that. They're not going to obey a constitution. They're going to use corporate codes and statutes if fiat is the only thing that's out there on the record, when they know we have our own money. That they will then, what do? We do a court action on the courts, which you can do that just at the top of your document, do the court action language. And we've shown you what the court action language is, but just for the record, we'll put it up on the screen again, the court action language. All of your documents should start with this language right here. That's on the screen right now, this red language. This all rise and stand. This is a sovereign, living, ancient, Article 3, Moorish American, Al-Moroccan, court action. I am sovereign, living justice, and you put your appellation in there, in capitis, diminutio, nolo, in red ink, etc. And you put that as court action language. Okay?
Right.
That means that whatever you're sending out is the law, especially because it's an unrebutted affidavit. They cannot rebut our affidavits, nobility. That's why I say everything that you've done in the past has absolutely been what should have been done. We need that one last piece because, see, we gave the subjects and the hybrid, we gave them one chakra. And guess what that one chakra is? Commerce. Commerce. That's what they were here for. So we have to put that last piece on there where we say, okay, the allocation of currency has been made. Therefore, we invoke the Constitution just by that allocation of currency, because that means we're obeying the Constitution, and not obeying, but we're aligned with the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, where it talks about the tendering of payment.
Okay.
And that tendering of payment in Article 10, it says in payment of debt. We don't have the debt, we just got the tender. And the debtors are coming saying, look, you're going to have to get us out of this. We need to be risen from the dead. We need to be subject. Put us in subject status. And that's the story that we showed at the beginning of this call. We showed you the story.
Yeah, I got in late, but I'll go, once you post it, I'll go over it again.
Okay. And just so that you're aware, I'll put it on the screen here just really quickly so that you can see the story. Let's see, really quickly, because it's important that you know that they are in subject status. They're ready to do whatever we say. This is Janet Yellen, the one doing business as Treasury Secretary. She is invoking, she's saying we shouldn't have to be 14th Amendment citizens in debt. That's what she's saying. She's saying we're in debt, but the only reason this even made it to the newspaper is because they know that we're awake and we are the creditors. Because in the past, they would have never let anybody know that the United States Corporation Company is yelling about, oh my goodness, we shouldn't have to be 14th Amendment citizens. That's what she's saying here. She's saying that they are 14th Amendment slaves if we don't do something about the debt.
We still have to be cautious because I've sent to like the utility commissioner and other ones. A lot of us might think that our affidavits are rebutted when they send response back, but their response do not have signatures on it. They do not stay under the penalties of perjury. An attorney can't answer for them. They have to answer it point by point. So they're not doing none of that, but they send out stuff to try to deceive you as if they answer it. So we
Let
have to
me
be
say
cautious.
this about that nobility. And I'll just make a suggestion with regard to that, because make sure that when you send the documents, and you may have done this, I just want to put it out there on the record. Make sure that every document that you send is in red and all lowercase letters when you're talking about us, and when you're talking about them, put them in blue in capitis diminutio minima, which means the first letter, the first U of United States is capital, and then everything else is in all lowercase letters in blue, United States of America, or whatever, United States Corporation Company, put them in blue, and everything else in red on government letterhead, and send them more sovereign delarium, or whatever it is that's out there.
All right.
And they will not be talking back thinking that they can rebut it. Because, see, the only time they really start talking back as if they have some authority or start talking about attorneys and stuff is if they see something in the documents that resembles feudal language.
It's kind of funny because they will not sign their name. Even when I get on the phone with them now, they won't sign it. I say, put it in writing and put it under the penalties of perjury. Send me a bill of lading and all. They will not dare touch any of that. And they hang up rapidly. So I've been hung up on so many times when you start talking that stuff.
Yes, because they already know. They're just saying, I hope he gets I hope he's gonna send some delarium so we can get out from under this pressure that he's putting on us. Because you're putting a lot of pressure on them. That's why they don't want to talk. Yeah. You know, and when you call them, you need to call them and do it as a court action, because each time you call them, what's the first thing they say? What is your name and account number? Isn't that what they say?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't even been on those calls, but I know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
I know their game plan.
They're not, and people think they don't know. They know.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
That's why they say those things, because they say if we don't get him under our jurisdiction quickly, he's going to start speaking the law, and then we have to get off the phone with him. So they ask those questions, and when they say name and account number, all rise and stand. This is a sovereign, ancient, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American, Article 3 consular court action. I am sovereign living justice, and then you state your appellation in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink. In proprio persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredis. Now, your account number that you have for your records is blah, 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 blah. The name that you have in monochrome ink is blah, blah, blah. So your records say this and this and this, because, see, you got to tell them what their records say. But when you speak it, that means you're putting it under your jurisdiction. That's why they ask, because they want you, they'll say name and account number because they want you to surrender. Mm-hmm. But you have to put that in its proper place. You can tell them you can give them the information they need, and you're not really giving it. You're actually telling them what their records should say. And they will agree. I've done it myself many times.
Oh, it's complicated because sometimes we do things that we're not alert to what we're doing. Like accounts, it don't matter whose name is on it and all this other stuff. Once you make the claim and claim it as a state and stuff like that, it is my understanding that they're supposed to wipe that, take that so-called name off of it and make a sovereign resource account. They will give you the hardest way if you just miss anything.
Well, it's not really. There's a formula for what we're doing. Just make sure, because these are the only things. There's three things that need to be done that we need to remember as the formula for everything we do. Number one, we don't have names. Number two, we don't have addresses, because they're always going to ask for a zip code, an address, or something. We don't have those. And number three, we don't use Federal Reserve debt notes. We use Delarium. You don't even have to talk to them on the phone if you send Delarium.
Yeah, but you got to know.
You don't even have to talk to them on the phone.
No matter how good we are, sometimes we forget. And
I get that. I get that.
Make mistakes.
Let the rule be this. Yes, and that's okay, nobility, because you know what? Fortunately for us, our ancestors are not going to let us be destroyed while we're remembering who we are. They're going to look out for us. They're going to protect us. And even with all that you've been through, you know, you're still here, you're still in your right mind, you're free, and you have the opportunity, and it's not even the opportunity, you have the right and the power and the authority to complete the demonstrations by sending Delarium. Okay, that is the competent continuation of the demonstrations that you're doing. Send the Delarium so that you properly rebut the Federal Reserve debt notes that they keep trying to get from everyone.
All right.
Proper rebuttal of that, and they will leave that alone. Put them in their place. We're not at war with them. So we don't need to be arguing back and forth and, you know, on the phone with them all the time. Because anytime I'm on the phone, I'm doing court action, period. And seeking the law, period. And that's if I have to do that.
All right.
So, you know, you've got a couple of other tools that you can use, the Delarium being one and the court action language being the other. If you ever need to talk to them, just do a court action, because that's really a proper introduction of yourself. And in any exchange with the subject, the first thing that needs to be done is proper identification of the parties. That's how all court actions start. That's why they try to do it first by saying, what's your name or account number or phone number? Because they want you to admit that you're a citizen when you're not. That's a regular court action. That is regular court behavior. And even Susie and Becky, the operator, knows that they're doing a court action. So they say, okay, proper identification. If we can identify them as a citizen, we can treat them like garbage. But if they properly identify first by court action, then we have to do what they say. I've done it, and I'm telling you, I did a phone call one day because I called this one company to get some information about something that I wanted done. So the person answered the phone, and I said, I'm going to properly, these were my words, I'm going to properly introduce myself. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, ancient, living, Al-Moroccan, Moorish American, Article 3, consular court action. I am sovereign living justice, Pauline Denise Ritchie, in capitis diminutio nolo, in red ink, in propria persona sui juris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredis. What is your name? That's what I asked her. What is your name? She said, I can't remember exactly what she said, Barbara or something like that. I said, Barbara, I have some questions that I'm going to ask you about the services that you provide. And so I asked her a question, and she did what they do. Her first thing out of her mouth, because see, we've been told you don't answer a question with a question. And she said, well, I need to get some information from you in order to answer that question properly. I said, Barbara, any questions that you have will be answered by way of the government affidavit that I send you. So don't ask any questions. I'm going to ask all the questions, and you provide the answers. Okay? And she said, okay. And so I asked her some things, and then I could see in her answer she was trying to find her way around asking a question. She did exactly what I told her. She was doing everything she could not to phrase her answer in a question format. And she did it. I had to give her a little old hand because she did a good job of not asking any questions, but giving me the information that I required of her by court action. And I could see her tiptoeing around the words, trying to make sure she don't ask a question. And that is how we handle them. That's how we handle them. Okay. Islam, you're doing all the right things, nobility. Keep doing what you're doing.
So, and if we can get together here in Indianapolis, I don't know if they got any groups doing anything. All the ones that I see, they're pretty much stuck on the religious and not the being educated side of it, and I'm for all of it. So if anybody in this area that wants to hook up and work together, I'm available.
Okay. If any Moors are in the Indianapolis territory, if you will shoot me a text message, and nobility, if you would send me a text message too, stating your appellation and that you were the one on the call, and that way if I get any text messages from any Moors in the Indianapolis territory, I can forward their information to you.
All right.
And let me give you my number, just in case if you would, because you may not have it.
I think I got it. If it hasn't changed, I have it.
It has not changed. It's still the same, and I'm glad you have it already.
I have it.
And for any more who want to connect with him that way, my number is 334-294-9828. Okay? So with that being said, I will say this about even connecting with other Moors, nobility. A lot of the demonstrations that I do, sometimes I end up doing them by myself also, but I know that the ancestors wanted us to stand sovereign and not feel like we had to have others around us when we're standing sovereign. But for the first year of my study, there were no Moors here in this territory. The ancestors only allowed us to start connecting as a group after I had done some demonstrations and did some study and made sure that I was competent and confident to stand on my own two sovereign feet. So a lot of the things we have done, and then the Moors started coming and we started meeting, and you've seen those photos on social media of the Moors in this territory, and then Moors from other territories coming and all of that. But for the most part, when we stand sovereign to do a demonstration, we do it ourselves. When we did the demonstration, the POW demonstration in February, we did that one ourselves. There was one of the justices that was there with us on that day, and he, thankfully, he knew what to do. And we went in to the POW camp and did our demonstration and came right on out victorious. So, don't feel bad about Moors not being around. They will come when it's time, and it's almost time, actually. Because when we ask, the ancestors automatically answer that. And I will tell you this, the next step that the ancestors have said that we are to make, oh boy, it's going to require that we come together, and we will. But the next step that they have given for us to do, now that we have everything packaged and ready to go, is to go into the highways and byways and the hedges and to spread the gospel of nationality and more sovereign delirium and all of that. And in order for us to do that effectively, we're going to have to be able to use more sovereign delirium on our way. wherever we go. So we're preparing for that.
There's quite a bit. It gets pretty complicated, but there's no end. There is no end. Banks and all.
You know what? In reality, nobility, if you remove all the complication and get it all the way down to jurisdiction, that's the simple. Just keep that in mind with every demonstration is jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction. How do you express jurisdiction? Everything comes from you. The delarium comes from you, that puts it in the right jurisdiction. You're in your proper status, you don't have a name, you don't have an address, that's jurisdiction. And then the language that you use in your affidavits and your documents. You know, even where ancient English is concerned, there are many who don't care for ancient English. They don't want to use it. I just encourage them, because you can't tell sovereigns what to do, but I encourage them every now and then, let's just say if you use the word and or the word of in your affidavits, just add an E on the end of and make it A-N-D-E, and then change O-F, which is of, change that to O-V, which is the Hebrew of. That way, again, you're not using their incompetent corporate English. You're using your own sovereign language. And just one word in a sentence or one word in a paragraph that is spelled in ancient English will change the nature of the whole writing.
Islam.
Okay.
Can I say something about that?
Sure.
This is just how it's Khalifa territory. I noticed when you go into their fake offices, they'll have forms in different languages. And so if they can accept a form in Filipino language, Chinese, they can accept ours. Whatever we say in our language, they can accept ours too. So there's nothing wrong with having your own language.
Yeah.
Islam,
Islam, you know what? That's good, because guess what? That is just pure ancient ancestral energy right there, Empress. Because guess what? In ancient English, if you put an affidavit on your screen and you tell a translator, one of those translation programs, if you tell that translation program to read your document, it'll be able to read it.
Yes. Yes, it can.
Is
Google and usually, go ahead, nobility. Sorry.
You usually put the E on the end of the continent or consonant?
Yes. Any word, like most of the words ending in consonants, I put an E on the end. For example, A-N-D is and. I just put an E on the end of that.
Okay.
And it's ancient English, and it means what I say it means. Yep. But I've written some documents that are in complete ancient English where all the words are spelled the way I want them to be spelled, and then you can go up onto any browser and tell that browser or that computer program to read the document, and it will read it just like I'm speaking.
Yep, and it's not complex. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
I mean, and it's weird because I've always been able to dissect that. If a word is so-called misspelled, it says what it says. It says the same thing, so there's no misspelling.
Yeah. And then it maintains the integrity of the word because the root word is still there.
Yep.
So the integrity and the etymology and the meaning of the word is the same, except it's more precise because it's our intention that determines the meaning of the word. What are we intending to do? That's up to us, and that's in our spirit. Intention doesn't have to be spoken. Period. We just type out the document, sign it in red and all lowercase letters, and no one can change the meaning. So when we say Constitution, when we used to go into state courts in our sleep and you know, we would talk about the Constitution, and I didn't do that when I went into state courts in my sleep because I didn't know anything about it. But when we would go into those courts, if we did say Constitution, they would automatically apply their meaning to that and say the United States Corporation Company Corporate Constitution, and it means what they say it means, which means citizens don't have any rights. But now we didn't know this, but we speak ancient English. We've been speaking ancient English the whole time. That's why when we say something, they would just take their meaning and apply it to it and say, nope, you don't have any rights. We have to apply, you know, they were saying they have to apply their corporate meaning. Well, now that we're writing things out by affidavit and putting it on the public record that, no, we speak ancient English, it means what we say it means, then you're seeing now that they're backing off. They have to, because as we read at the beginning of this call, the one who determines the meaning of the word controls the people. Here it is right here on the screen. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use them. And with that, I yield the floor. Islam. So we'll go ahead and we'll be right back here on Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So glad that you all came and spoke. We need to have these discussions. And Nobility, thank you so much for your question. I really appreciate that question because we need to know what's going on out there so we can fix it.
Thank you and all the Moors.
Yes, Islam, thank you so much. And Moors, use the Delarium, use it, and then watch the last two videos that we did where we explain what the dollar really is and we explain what legal tender really is and lawful money and all of that according to the law and the law dictionaries and the documents that are put on the public record like the Constitution and the treaties. Those are all commercial documents. So go back and look at those videos so that you can be sure that you know that Delarium is exactly what we should be doing. We should have been allocating our own currency the whole time. With that being said, peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous.
Peace and grand rising.
Islam. Peace and grand rising to the Moors. Islam. We got it.
Yes. Long live the empire indeed. We got this.